The blood moon rises, and with it, an ancient terror reawakens. For centuries, the Crimson Moon Pack has been nothing more than a whispered myth, a cautionary tale told to pups who misbehave. But tonight, beneath the palace library where shadows breathe and secrets bleed through ancient stone, one woman will uncover the truth that was never meant to be found. The Crimson Moon Pack wasn't destroyed. They were sealed away, waiting. And the Alpha King, who rules with an iron fist, knows exactly why they must never, ever return. But hey, before we dive into this storm of secrets and forbidden truths, hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to your new obsession. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Are you Team Night Owl Pack listening in the dark, or are you sneaking the story in during your lunch break? And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. This story? It's going to wreck you in the best way possible. Now, let's get into it. The air in the sub-basement of the Royal Archives tasted like decay and forgotten oats. Maddie pressed her palm against the cold stone wall, her breath misting in the unnatural chill that clung to this place like a curse. The oil lamp in her other hand flickered, casting jittery shadows across rows of crumbling scrolls and leather-bound tomes that hadn't been touched in decades, maybe centuries. She shouldn't be here. The thought stabbed through her mind for the 100th time tonight, but she pushed it aside. She was an archivist. This was her job, even if no one had asked her to come down to the 4th sublevel. Even if the iron door at the top of the stairs had been sealed with a lock so old it had crumbled to rust beneath her trembling fingers. Just one more shelf, she told herself. Then I'll go back up. But that's what she'd said an hour ago. Maddie was good at lying to herself. It was a skill she'd perfected over 23 years of being invisible. An omega. Unmated. Unnoticed. The kind of wolf who could disappear in a crowded room, who never caught the eye of an alpha, who was safe precisely because she was forgettable. Except tonight, she didn't feel safe. Tonight, the stone walls seemed to watch her. She moved deeper into the archive, her boots silent on the dust-covered floor. The shelves here were different, older, carved from black wood that gleamed like oil in the lamplight. And the books, gods, the books were wrong. Their spines were unmarked, their pages sewn with thread that looked disturbingly like hair. Maddie's wolf stirred uneasily in her chest, a low whine of warning. Leave. Now. But her human curiosity was stronger, or maybe just more foolish. She reached for one of the volumes, her fingers brushing the leather cover. The moment she touched it, the temperature plummeted. Her breath came out in a white cloud. The lamp flame turned blue, then violet, then a deep, bloody crimson that made her stomach twist. And from somewhere in the darkness beyond the shelves, she heard it. A heartbeat. Not hers. Something else's. Something that had been waiting in the silence for a very, very long time. Maddie stumbled backward, her hips slamming into the shelf behind her. Books tumbled to the floor, their pages spilling open, and that's when she saw it, inked on yellowed parchment in a language she shouldn't be able to read but somehow could. When the blood moon rises in the 9th cycle, the chains shall weaken. The Crimson Moon Pack, bound by the sins of the throne, shall claw their way from the Shadowlands. And she who bears the mark of both moon and mortality shall stand at the crossroads of their awakening, to seal them forever or set them free. Maddie's heart hammered against her ribs. The Crimson Moon Pack. She knew the stories, every wolf did. They were the monsters of legend, the pack so brutal and powerful that the Alpha Council had united for the first and only time in history to destroy them. Except, they hadn't been destroyed, had they? They'd been sealed. And if this prophecy was real, if tonight's blood moon was the 9th cycle, what are you doing here? The voice cut through the darkness like a blade, and Maddie spun around so fast she nearly dropped the lamp. He stood at the edge of the lamplight, a figure carved from shadows and fury. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes that glowed molten gold in the crimson light, alpha eyes, but darker, more dangerous than any she'd ever seen. Alpha King Jareth. Maddie's knees nearly buckled. The most powerful wolf in the kingdom didn't just visit the archives. He didn't lower himself to the dusty bowels of his own palace to check on a nobody Omega in the middle of the night. Unless she'd found something she wasn't supposed to find. Your Majesty, her voice came out strangled, small. She clutched the prophecy scroll against her chest like a shield, knowing even as she did it that it was the worst possible move. I was cataloging the lower archives and I found. Give it to me. Not a request. A command laced with alpha dominance that crashed into her like a physical blow. Her wolf whimpered, every instinct screaming at her to submit, to obey, to bare her throat and beg forgiveness. But something in his eyes stopped her. Not anger. Fear. The Alpha King was afraid of what she'd found. This prophecy, Maddie whispered, her voice shaking but determined. It says the Crimson Moon Pack is coming back. Tonight. We have to warn the council, we have to. You will do nothing. Jareth closed the distance between them in 2 strides, moving with the lethal grace of a predator. He towered over her, his presence suffocating, overwhelming. You will not speak of this to anyone. Not the council. Not the guards. Not a single soul in this kingdom. Do you understand me? Maddie's breath hitched. But if they're coming back. They're not coming back. His voice dropped to a growl, and she felt the vibration of it in her bones. That prophecy is a lie. A poison planted by enemies of the throne. And you, little Omega, are going to forget you ever saw it. He reached for the scroll, but Maddie's fingers tightened on the parchment. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why would you hide this? If there's even a chance. Jareth's hand shot out, his fingers wrapping around her wrist, not painfully, but with enough pressure to make his point. His touch was fire and ice, sending a shock of awareness through her that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the mate bond she'd always believed she'd never feel. No. But his eyes widened, just a fraction, and she knew he felt it too. That impossible pull. That catastrophic recognition. Because, he said quietly, his voice rough with something that sounded almost like despair, the prophecy doesn't just speak of the Crimson Moon Pack's return. He released her wrist and stepped back, his jaw tight. It speaks of the woman who will awaken them. The one with moon-marked blood. His gaze dropped to her left hand, where a crescent-shaped birthmark had always marked her skin, the mark she'd always hidden, always been ashamed of. The mark that was now glowing silver in the crimson lamplight. And that woman, Jareth said, his voice like gravel and broken glass, is you. Maddie's world tilted. The prophecy scroll slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the stone floor like a dying bird. The words echoed in her skull, moon-marked blood, and she couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the thundering of her heart and the impossible truth burning in the Alpha King's golden eyes. No, the word came out broken, barely a whisper. That's not, I'm nobody. I'm just an archivist. I don't have any special blood, I'm not. You're lying to yourself. Jareth's voice was flat, emotionless, but his eyes, God's, his eyes were blazing with something raw and desperate. That mark on your hand isn't a birthmark, Maddie. It's a seal. And the fact that it's glowing right now, on this night of all nights, means the prophecy has already begun. He knew her name. The Alpha King knew her name. Maddie pressed her back against the shelf, her mind scrambling for purchase on anything that made sense. She was invisible. She'd spent her entire life being invisible. She worked in the archives because she liked being forgotten, liked the quiet safety of old books and older secrets. She wasn't special. She wasn't anything. I don't understand, she breathed. If you knew about this prophecy, if you knew about me, then why didn't you? Because I was hoping I was wrong. Jareth dragged a hand through his dark hair, the gesture so unexpectedly human it startled her. For a moment, he didn't look like the ruthless Alpha King who'd conquered 3 territories and executed his own uncle for treason. He looked tired, haunted. I've had wolves watching you for years, Maddie. Making sure you never came down here. Making sure you never found that prophecy. But tonight, of all nights, the guards were pulled away to handle a border dispute. A dispute that now feels entirely too convenient. Someone wanted me to find this, Maddie realized, her voice hollow. Yes, the Crimson Moon Pack. Jareth's jaw clenched. Or someone who wants them freed. The lamplight flickered again, and in the dancing shadows, Maddie saw something shift in Jareth's expression, a crack in his armor, a glimpse of the man beneath the crown. You need to tell me the truth, she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. All of it. What really happened to the Crimson Moon Pack? Why were they sealed instead of killed? And what does my blood have to do with any of it? For a long moment, Jareth just stared at her. Then, slowly, he bent down and retrieved the fallen scroll, his movements careful, controlled. The Crimson Moon Pack wasn't evil, he said quietly. That's the first lie you need to unlearn. Maddie's breath caught. They were powerful. More powerful than any pack that had come before them. Their alpha could command the moon itself, bend its gravity, its pull. They could shift under any moon phase, not just the full moon. They were faster, stronger, nearly immortal. Jareth's fingers tightened on the scroll. And my ancestor, the first Alpha King of this kingdom, was terrified of them. So he destroyed them. So he tried. Jareth's laugh was bitter, sharp. But you can't kill what won't die. So instead, he made a deal with the Blood Witch. She created a seal, a prison woven from moonlight and betrayal. The entire Crimson Moon Pack was dragged into the Shadowlands and bound there, kept alive but trapped for eternity. Maddie's stomach turned. That's worse than death. Yes. Jareth met her eyes, and the weight of centuries of guilt pressed down between them. And the seal was tied to the royal bloodline. As long as an Alpha King sits on the throne, as long as my family holds power, the Crimson Moon Pack remains trapped. Understanding crashed through her like a cold wave. But the prophecy says they're breaking free, she whispered. Which means the seal is weakening. Which means my claim to the throne is weakening. Jareth's voice was steel wrapped in shadow. And if the council finds out, if the other alphas smell that weakness, they'll tear me apart and civil war will rip this kingdom to shreds. So you'd rather risk the Crimson Moon Pack breaking free than admit you might not be strong enough to hold them? Maddie shook her head, anger sparking through her fear. That's insane. That's survival. Jareth stepped closer, and she caught his scent, pine and smoke, and something darker, wilder. You don't understand what you're asking me to do. The Crimson Moon Pack has been sealed for 300 years. 300 years of rage, of hunger, of watching their families die in the darkness, while the rest of us lived in the light. If they break free, they won't just want revenge. They'll want annihilation. Then we stop them, Maddie said. We figure out how to strengthen the seal, or... There is only one way to strengthen the seal. Jareth's eyes locked on hers, golden and burning. Blood. Moon-marked blood freely given. The same blood that can free them can also bind them forever. The air between them crackled with unspoken meaning. You're asking me to choose, Maddie realized, her voice barely audible. To either set them free or condemn them to an eternity of suffering. I'm not asking you anything. Jareth's expression hardened. I'm telling you that you will do neither. You will go back to your quarters, you will forget everything you read tonight, and you will stay far away from the blood moon ceremony. And if I don't? The question hung in the air like a blade. Jareth's hand shot out, gripping her chin gently but firmly, tilting her face up to his. His touch sent electricity racing down her spine, the mate bond singing between them impossible, undeniable, catastrophic. Then I will lock you in the royal dungeons myself, he said softly, and keep you there until the blood moon passes and the danger is over. Because I am not losing you to a prophecy written by wolves who have been dead for centuries. Do you understand me, Maddie? Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. You feel it too, she whispered. The bond. His eyes flashed. That changes nothing. It changes everything. Maddie pulled away from his touch, her wolf rising in her chest, not in submission, but in defiance. You can't order me to ignore this. I found that prophecy for a reason. Maybe I'm supposed to. A howl split the night. Not from inside the palace. From outside, from the north, from the direction of the Shadowlands where nothing lived and nothing could live. But it wasn't just one howl. It was dozens. Hundreds. A chorus of voices that had been silent for 3 centuries, now screaming their freedom into the crimson sky. Jareth's face went white. It's too late, Maddie breathed, her hands trembling. The seal is already breaking. And somewhere in the distance, beneath the glow of the blood moon, something ancient and angry began to wake. Oh no. The Crimson Moon Pack is breaking free tonight. What do you think happens next? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you're on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe. You're going to want to see how this unfolds. The howls didn't stop. They grew louder, closer, a symphony of fury that rattled the ancient stones of the palace and made the lamplight shudder. Maddie felt each cry in her bones, in her blood, in the mark on her hand that now burned like a brand against her skin. Jareth moved before she could blink. His hand clamped around her wrist, the one with the glowing mark, and he dragged her toward the stairs with a speed that made her stumble. We're leaving. Now. Wait, Maddie tried to pull free, but his grip was iron. The prophecy, the scrolls, we need to. Forget the scrolls. His voice was a whip crack of command. The only thing that matters now is getting you somewhere safe before they catch your scent. Before who catches my... The explosion of sound from above answered her question. Shattering glass. Splintering wood. Screams human and wolf echoing through the palace halls. And beneath it all, a deep, rhythmic thud-thud-thud that sounded like war drums, or a massive heartbeat clawing its way out of the earth. The Crimson Moon Pack is already inside the palace, Maddie whispered, horror flooding through her. How's that possible? They were sealed in the Shadowlands, you said. The blood moon weakens the barrier between worlds. Jareth hauled her up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. But they shouldn't have been able to cross this quickly. The seal should have held for at least another hour, which means... He stopped so abruptly she crashed into his back. At the top of the stairs, blocking the doorway, stood a woman. She was beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful, all sharp edges and lethal grace. Her hair fell in silver waves past her shoulders, and her eyes, gods, her eyes were the color of fresh blood, glowing in the darkness like twin wounds in the fabric of reality. Hello, cousin, she said, her voice honey and poison. It's been a long time. Jareth's entire body went rigid. Kimberly. The name dropped like a stone into still water. Maddie's mind raced. Cousin. Jareth had a cousin, which meant royal blood, which meant... You're supposed to be dead, Jareth said flatly. I watched your execution myself. 20 years ago. Kimberly's smile was a razor slash. You watched someone's execution. A convenient body double, spelled to wear my face. Did you really think it would be that easy to kill the last daughter of the Crimson Moon bloodline? The air left Maddie's lungs. That's impossible, she breathed. The Crimson Moon Pack has no living descendants. They were all sealed or hidden. Kimberly's red eyes slid to Maddie, and the weight of that gaze made her want to run, to hide, to disappear. My mother was a Crimson Moon Wolf. My father was your precious Alpha King's uncle, the one Jareth executed for treason. Tell me, cousin, did you ever wonder why Uncle Marcus was conspiring against you? What he was really trying to protect? Jareth's hand tightened on Maddie's wrist, a silent warning. Marcus was trying to overthrow the throne. He confessed everything before he died. He confessed to save me. Kimberly stepped into the stairwell, and Maddie caught her scent. Night-blooming flowers and old blood and something else, something that made her wolf whimper and press close to her spine. He took the blame for my crimes, died with your claws in his throat. Also, I could escape and finish what he started. Freeing the Crimson Moon Pack, Maddie said, the pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. Not just freeing them. Kimberly's smile widened. Awakening them. Giving them back what was stolen 3 centuries ago, their power, their pack bonds, their rightful place as the apex predators of this world. She tilted her head, studying Maddie like a curiosity. And you, little moon-marked Omega, are the key to everything. Jareth shifted, putting himself between Maddie and Kimberly. You're not touching her. I don't need to touch her. Kimberly's laugh was crystalline, cruel. She'll come to me willingly once she knows the truth. What truth? Maddie's voice came out stronger than she felt. That Jareth isn't trying to protect you, sweetheart. Kimberly's red eyes gleamed. He's trying to use you. That mate bond you feel? It's not fate. It's not destiny. It's a blood spell, cast by the same witch who created the seal, designed to bind the moon-marked bloodline to the royal family forever. Jareth needs you compliant, needs you bonded to him, so he can drain your blood and strengthen the seal whenever it starts to crack. Maddie's heart stuttered. No, that's... Tell her I'm lying, Kimberly purred, looking at Jareth. Go on, cousin. Tell her the mate bond is real. Tell her you didn't know exactly who and what she was the moment you scented her 3 years ago. Tell her you didn't plant her in the archives specifically so you could keep her close and monitor her power. Silence. Jareth said nothing, and his silence was an answer all its own. Maddie jerked her wrist free from his grasp, stumbling backward. You knew? This whole time, you knew what I was, and you just let me think I was nobody. Maddie, his voice cracked on her name. It's not what you think. Then what is it? She was shaking now, fury and betrayal warring in her chest. Tell me the truth, Jareth. Right now. Is the mate bond real, or is it a spell? His jaw clenched. His eyes burned. And when he finally spoke, his voice was raw with something that sounded almost like pain. Both. The word hit her like a physical blow. The bond was created by magic, Jareth continued, each word dragged from somewhere deep and wounded. But what I feel for you, what I've felt since the moment I first saw you, that's real. I swear on my life, Maddie, that's real. How convenient, Kimberly drawled. True love built on lies and blood magic. How very royal of you. Another howl split the air closer now, inside the palace walls, racing toward them with predatory intent. We're out of time, Kimberly said, her smile fading into something harder, sharper. The Crimson Moon Pack is awake, and they're hungry. They've been trapped in darkness for 300 years, and the first thing they want to do is tear apart the bloodline that imprisoned them. Her red eyes locked on Jareth. Which means you, cousin, are about to have a very bad night. She stepped aside, gesturing to the darkness behind her. But you, little Omega, have a choice to make. Maddie's mark flared with silver light, burning so bright it cast shadows on the walls. Come with me, Kimberly said softly, and I'll show you how to control your power. How to free the Crimson Moon Pack without destroying yourself in the process. How to break the chains that have bound both our bloodlines for centuries. Or stay with him, she nodded at Jareth, and let him bleed you dry to protect a throne built on genocide and lies. The howls were deafening now. The palace was falling. And Maddie stood at the center of it all, her hand burning with ancient power, her heart torn between a bond that might be false and a freedom that might be fatal. Choose, Kimberly whispered. And, from the darkness behind her, Maddie heard them, the Crimson Moon Pack, centuries of rage given form and fong, racing toward the archive stairs like an avalanche of teeth and fury. She had seconds. Maybe less. Maddie, please. Jareth's voice was broken, desperate. Don't do this. Don't trust her. But when Maddie looked at him, really looked at him, she saw the truth written in every line of his face. He'd been using her, manipulating her, building a bond on lies and stolen choices. And the Crimson Moon Pack was coming for blood. Her blood. One way or another, this ended tonight. Maddie took a breath, felt her wolf rise in her chest, and made her choice. Maddie's decision came not from her heart, but from her gut, the primal place where survival lived. "I'm not choosing either of you," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "I'm choosing the truth." Before Jareth or Kimberly could react, Maddie turned and bolted, not up toward Kimberly, not back toward Jareth, but sideways, through a narrow gap in the archive shelves that she'd discovered months ago during her cataloging. A servant's passage, forgotten and dust-choked, that led to the eastern wing. "Maddie!" Jareth's roar shook the foundations, but she was already gone, swallowed by darkness and desperation. Behind her, she heard the collision, Jareth and Kimberly crashing together in a fury of snarls and snapping bone. The Crimson Moonpack's howls grew deafening as they poured into the archives, and Maddie ran faster, her lungs burning, her mark blazing like a torch in the suffocating dark. She had to find answers. Real answers. Not Jareth's half-truths or Kimberly's poisoned promises. And she knew exactly where to look. The Royal Library's upper sanctum was forbidden to everyone except the Alpha King and his advisors, but Maddie had stolen the key 3 months ago, unable to resist the lure of the oldest texts in the kingdom. She'd told herself it was just academic curiosity. Now, as she burst through the sanctum doors and slammed them shut behind her, she realized some part of her had always known this moment was coming. The room was circular, lined floor to ceiling with books bound in leather and iron. Moonlight, crimson and wrong, poured through the domed glass ceiling, painting everything the color of fresh wounds. Maddie's hands shook as she grabbed volume after volume, throwing them open, scanning for anything about moon-marked bloodlines, about the original sealing, about... There. A tome so old its pages were more leather than paper, written in a language that shifted and changed under her gaze until it became readable. And there, in ink that looked disturbingly like dried blood, was the full prophecy. When the blood moon rises in the 9th cycle, the daughter of 2 worlds shall stand at the crossroads. Born of the moon's mark and the earth's sorrow, she carries the key to chains forged in betrayal. 3 paths lie before her. Bind the Crimson Moonpack with her blood, and seal them forever in suffering. Free the Crimson Moonpack with her will, and unleash vengeance upon the world. Or walk the 3rd path, the path of balance, and remake the bond between wolf and moon, between power and mercy, between what was and what could be. But beware, the 3rd path requires sacrifice. To heal what was broken, she must give what cannot be reclaimed. To bridge 2 worlds, she must surrender her place in both. Maddie's breath came in short gasps. 3 paths. Not 2. 3. Neither Jareth nor Kimberly had told her about the 3rd option, because neither of them wanted her to choose it. The sound of splintering would jerk her attention to the door. Something massive slammed against it from the outside, once, twice, and the ancient hinges began to groan. No, no, no. Maddie grabbed the tome and ran for the only other exit, a narrow window that led to the palace rooftops. She was halfway through when the door exploded inward. But it wasn't the Crimson Moonpack that entered. It was Jareth, bloodied and furious, his eyes blazing gold. "Did you really think you could run from me?" "I wasn't running from you," Maddie shot back, clutching the tome. "I was running toward answers. Something you've never given me. I was protecting you. By lying to me? By making me think I was nothing special, so I'd never question why the Alpha King kept a random Omega archivist so close." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "I'm not some fragile thing that needs protection, Jareth. I'm the key to this entire catastrophe. And you knew it. You've always known it." Jareth's expression cracked, pain bleeding through the fury. "Yes, I knew. I've known since the moment I caught your scent in the market 3 years ago and felt the bond snap into place." He took a step toward her, hands raised in surrender. "But the bond being created by magic doesn't mean it's not real, Maddie. Every Alpha King has had their moon-marked mate found for them through the spell, but the love, the connection, the choice, that's always been genuine." "Choice?" Maddie's voice rose. "What choice did I have? You manipulated my entire life, put me exactly where you wanted me, and then forbid me from speaking when I finally discovered the truth. That's not love, Jareth. That's possession. I was trying to save you. His voice broke. If the council knew what you were, they'd use you, bleed you, sacrifice you to maintain their power. If the Crimson Moon Pack knew what you were, they'd force you to free them and damn the consequences. I was the only one trying to give you a life, Maddie. A normal, safe life where you didn't have to carry the weight of this God's-forsaken prophecy. But it was never your decision to make. The words hung between them like a blade. Jareth's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, he looked ancient. Worn. I know, he whispered. And I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry, Maddie. But please, please don't trust Kimberly. She doesn't want freedom. She wants revenge. And she'll burn this entire kingdom to get it. Maybe the kingdom deserves to burn, Maddie said quietly. Maybe a throne built on genocide and blood magic isn't worth saving. Jareth flinched as if she'd struck him. Before he could respond, the window behind Maddie exploded inward. She threw herself sideways as a massive wolf, silver as starlight, eyes red as rubies, landed in the sanctum. It was twice the size of any wolf she'd ever seen, its fur rippling with an otherworldly luminescence that made her mark burn in recognition. Crimson Moon, she breathed. The wolf's red eyes locked on her, and she felt its voice in her mind, not words, but feelings. Rage, hunger, hope, desperation. Free us. Please. We've been trapped so long in the dark. Maddie, get behind me. Jareth shifted mid-leap, his own wolf form massive and midnight black, placing himself between her and the Crimson Moon Wolf. But the silver wolf didn't attack. It bowed, lowered its massive head to the ground in a gesture of submission so profound it made Maddie's heart stutter. You are the daughter of prophecy, the voice whispered in her mind. The bridge between worlds. We do not wish to harm you. We wish to be free. Maddie's voice failed. She looked at Jareth's wolf, bristling with protective fury, then at the Crimson Moon Wolf, trembling with centuries of pain. And she realized they were both victims. Jareth's family, cursed to be jailers for crimes committed generations ago. The Crimson Moon Pack, imprisoned for the sin of being too powerful, too different. And she was the key that could end it, or make it so much worse. There's a third path, she said aloud, her voice stronger now. The prophecy speaks of balance, of remaking the bond between wolf and moon. Not sealing, not freeing. Something new. Jareth shifted back to human form, naked and bloodied. Maddie, that part of the prophecy is a myth. No one knows what it means. It could kill you. Or it could save everyone. She met his eyes, saw the fear and love warring there. Including you. The silver wolf's ears pricked forward. The third path requires sacrifice, it said in her mind. What will you give, daughter of two worlds? Maddie looked down at the tome in her hands, at the prophecy written in blood. At her mark, glowing brighter than the blood moon itself. Everything, she whispered. I'll give everything. And as the words left her lips, the mark on her hand erupted with silver fire, spreading up her arm like living lightning. The palace shook. The blood moon flared. And somewhere in the Shadowlands, the seal shattered completely. The Crimson Moon Pack was coming. All of them. And Maddie stood at the center of the storm, burning with ancient power she didn't understand, facing a choice that would reshape the world. Or destroy it. The silver fire consuming Maddie's arm didn't hurt. It sang. Every cell in her body vibrated with a frequency she'd never felt before, ancient, primal right. The mark that had always been a source of shame now blazed like a constellation come to Earth, and through it, she felt them. Every single Crimson Moon Wolf. Hundreds of voices, crying out from the Shadowlands, clawing their way back toward the light. 3 centuries of anguish and fury and desperate, aching hope flooded through her veins, and Maddie gasped, falling to her knees under the weight of it. Maddie! Jareth lunged for her, But the silver wolf intercepted him, snarling a warning. "Do not touch her," the voice commanded in both their minds. "The awakening has begun. If you break her concentration now, the power will tear her apart." "Then stop it," Jareth roared, his alpha dominance rolling out in waves. "She's not strong enough for this. She's an Omega, she can't." "She is no Omega." The silver wolf's red eyes gleamed with something like reverence. "She never was." That was the disguise, the protection, woven into her bloodline to hide her from those who would use her. But now the blood moon has burned away the veil. "Look at her, Alpha King. Look at what she truly is." Jareth's gaze snapped to Maddie, and his breath caught. She was glowing. Silver light poured from her skin, from her eyes, from the mark that now covered half her body in swirling, intricate patterns that looked like both chains and wings. Her hair lifted in an invisible wind, and when she opened her eyes, they were no longer the soft brown he'd memorized. They were silver. Pure, burning silver, the color of the full moon, the color of ancient magic, the color of power. What's happening to me?" Maddie's voice echoed, layered with harmonics that didn't sound entirely human. "You are becoming what you were always meant to be," the silver wolf said gently. "The moon's daughter. The last of the lunar priestesses, thought extinct for 1,000 years. Your ancestors were the ones who could speak to the moon itself, who could channel its power, who could create bonds between wolf and celestial magic." "The Blood Witch," Maddie whispered, understanding crashing through her. "The one who created the seal. She was a lunar priestess." "Yes. And she was your great-great-grandmother, 6 generations removed." The wolf's mental voice carried centuries of sorrow. "She loved a crimson moon alpha. My grandfather. But when the first Alpha King demanded she seal us away, she was given a choice: condemn her mate's entire pack to eternal darkness, or watch the Alpha King slaughter every wolf in the kingdom, including her own children." Horror washed through Maddie. She chose the seal. She chose mercy over love. Suffering over extinction. The wolf's form shimmered, and suddenly a man stood where the beast had been, tall, silver-haired, with those same blood-red eyes. He was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, ancient and ethereal. And she wove a failsafe into the spell. A way to undo it, should the time ever come when the kingdom was ready for truth instead of tyranny. The moon-marked bloodline, Maddie breathed. She ensured one of her descendants would have the power to break the seal. Not break it. The man, the Crimson Moon Alpha, stepped closer, his bare feet silent on the stone. Transform it. That's what the third path means, Maddie. You don't have to choose between binding us forever or setting us free to destroy. You can remake the bond. Create a new seal, not one of imprisonment, but of balance. A covenant between the Crimson Moon Pack and the rest of the Wolf Kingdom. Equals, not prisoners. Partners, not threats. That's insane, Jareth snarled, though his eyes never left Maddie's transformed face. The Crimson Moon Pack is too powerful. If they're freed without the seal's constraints, we will have no reason to seek vengeance, the Alpha interrupted, his voice sharp, if we are given justice instead. For 300 years, we have suffered. 300 years of darkness, of isolation, of watching our children grow old and die in a prison they did nothing to deserve. We don't want war, Alpha King. We want recognition. Acknowledgement that what was done to us was wrong. And a place in this world that doesn't require us to bow to a throne built on our chains. Jareth's jaw clenched. And if I refuse? If I fight to maintain the seal? Then Maddie dies. The Alpha's words were soft but devastating. Because the third path requires willing sacrifice from both sides. From us, the surrender of vengeance. From you, the surrender of absolute power. And from her, he looked at Maddie, and something like grief flickered in those red eyes. The surrender of her humanity. The words hit Jareth like a physical blow. No. The lunar priestess magic is not meant for mortal bodies, the Alpha explained, his voice gentle despite the horror of his words. To remake the seal, to forge a new covenant, Maddie will have to channel the full power of the blood moon through her body. It will burn away everything mortal in her, her human half, her wolf half, everything that makes her, her. She'll become something else. Something other. A guardian between worlds, neither fully alive nor fully spirit. Eternal, but alone. No, Jareth's voice broke. There has to be another way. There has to. There isn't. Maddie's voice cut through his desperation, clear and certain despite the silver fire consuming her. She looked at him, and even with her eyes transformed, he saw her in there, his Maddie, the quiet archivist who'd stolen his heart 3 years ago. This is what I was born for, Jareth. This is why the prophecy found me. Why you found me. I found you because I was supposed to use you, Jareth said hoarsely, moving toward her despite the Alpha's warning growl. But I fell in love with you instead. Real love, Maddie. Not the spell, not the bond you. Your stubbornness, your curiosity, the way you hum when you're cataloging books, the way you smell like old paper and lavender. I love you, not some cosmic key or mystical priestess. And I am not letting you sacrifice yourself for a kingdom that's never given you anything but invisibility. Tears, silver, like liquid moonlight, tracked down Maddie's cheeks. The kingdom didn't give me anything. But you did. 3 years of safety. Of purpose. Of feeling like maybe somewhere I mattered to someone. Her voice cracked. You gave me that, Jareth. Even if it started as manipulation, even if the bond was spelled into existence, you chose to protect me. To keep me close. To give me a life. I chose wrong, Jareth said fiercely, and suddenly he was right there, his hands cupping her glowing face, heedless of the power crackling over her skin. I should have told you the truth. Should have given you the choice from the beginning. And I'm giving it to you now, Maddie. Choose. Choose to walk away. Choose to run. Choose to let someone else be the hero. Choose us. The mate bond between them flared, no longer just a spell but something real and raw and utterly devastating. I can't, Maddie whispered. Because I love you too. And that's exactly why I have to do this. No. If I don't, the Crimson Moon Pack breaks free with 300 years of rage, and they'll destroy everything. Including you. If I strengthen the old seal, they suffer forever, and I become the monster who chose one life over hundreds. But if I take the third path, she pressed her glowing hand over his heart. I can save everyone. Your kingdom. Their freedom. The balance that should have existed from the beginning. At the cost of yourself. Jareth's voice was ashes and broken glass. I just got you. I just admitted I love you. And now you're asking me to let you go. I'm asking you to trust me. Maddie rose, the silver fire spreading, consuming, transforming. And I'm asking you to make a choice too. Will you share power with the Crimson Moon Pack? Will you tear down the tyranny of the throne and build something new, a council of alphas, working together, equals instead of subjects? It was the question that would decide everything. Jareth looked at her, his mate, his love, his impossible choice. Then at the Crimson Moon Alpha, centuries of justified rage barely contained beneath a civilized surface. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse. To fight. To kill the Crimson Moon wolves and damn the consequences, because at least then Maddie would live. But she was right. She'd always been right. Fine. The word tasted like surrender and revolution all at once. I'll share the throne. I'll create the council. I'll tear down my own kingdom's foundation and rebuild it with the wolves who have every reason to hate me. His eyes locked on Maddie's. But only if you promise me something. What? That you'll fight. Jareth's hand tightened on hers. Fight to keep yourself in there. Fight to remember me, remember us, even if you become something else. Because I'm not giving up on you, Maddie. I don't care if you become a goddess or a ghost. I will find a way back to you. I swear it. Maddie's sob was silver light and heartbreak. I promise. The Crimson Moon Alpha stepped forward, his expression solemn. Then we are agreed. The covenant will be forged. and the blood moon will witness our choice." He placed his hand over Maddie's heart. Jareth placed his hand over hers. And Maddie, burning with the power of 1,000 moons, threw her head back and screamed. The palace shattered. The blood moon exploded with light. And in the Shadowlands, 300 years of chains turned to dust. Oh my God. I'm crying. Are you crying? Tell me you're crying. Drop a comment with your emotions because I need to know I'm not alone in this. The transformation wasn't beautiful. It was agony. Maddie's scream tore through the palace, through the kingdom, through the barrier between the mortal world and the Shadowlands themselves. Every nerve in her body ignited as the blood moon's power flooded through her veins, burning away everything human, everything mortal, leaving behind something raw and ancient and terrifying. Jareth tried to hold on to her, but the force erupting from her body threw him backward. He crashed through a bookshelf, with splintering around him, and when he struggled to his feet, he saw her. Maddie was floating, suspended 3 feet off the ground, her body arched in impossible angles as silver light poured from her mouth, her eyes, the mark that now covered every inch of her skin. Her screams had turned to something else, a sound that wasn't quite language, wasn't quite music, but felt like the universe itself was being rewritten. Maddie. Jareth lunged for her again, but the Crimson Moon Alpha caught him. You'll only hurt her, the Alpha said, though his own expression was grim. The covenant is forming. The old bonds are breaking. She's channeling power that hasn't walked this earth in a millennium. All we can do is witness. Like hell, Jareth threw him off, his alpha strength surging. I'm not just going to watch while she... The sanctum doors exploded inward. Kimberly strode through the wreckage, and she wasn't alone. Behind her, dozens of wolves poured in, not the ancient Crimson Moon Pack, but her followers. Wolves with red eyes and twisted smiles, wolves who'd been waiting in the shadows for this exact moment. And leading them, his eyes blazing with madness, was a figure Jareth recognized with cold, creeping horror. Uncle Marcus? The name came out strangled. But it couldn't be. Jareth had killed Marcus himself 20 years ago. Had buried him in the royal crypts. Had watched him die. Did you really think death could stop what we'd started? The thing wearing Marcus's face smiled, and its teeth were too sharp, too many. Your pathetic execution freed me from flesh, nephew. Made me something better. A revenant, bound to Kimberly's will, sustained by the Shadowlands' magic. And now that the seal is breaking, now that the barrier between worlds is thinning, he shifted, but not into a wolf. Into something else. Something with too many limbs, too many eyes, its body flickering between solid and shadow like a nightmare given form. Now I can finally finish what I started, Marcus hissed. Tearing down your throne and bathing in your blood. The Crimson Moon Alpha snarled, moving to intercept, but Kimberly raised her hand and froze him mid-step. Blood magic crackled around her fingers, ancient and forbidden. Not yet, old wolf, she purred. You stay right there and watch while I take what should have been mine from the beginning. She turned to Maddie, still suspended and screaming, and her smile was a razor blade. Poor little moon-marked girl. Did you really think the third path would be that simple? That you could just channel some power, forge a covenant, and everyone lives happily ever after? She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. The third path doesn't create balance, you fool. It creates a vacuum. And I'm going to fill it. What are you talking about? Jareth demanded, moving to put himself between Kimberly and Maddie. The prophecy says the lunar priestess must give what cannot be reclaimed, Kimberly explained, circling like a predator. Her mortality, yes. Her humanity, yes. But also her power. The moment she completes the covenant, the moment she burns away everything that makes her mortal, all that ancient magic, all that beautiful, infinite power becomes untethered. Floating free. Waiting for someone strong enough to claim it. Horror dawned in Jareth's eyes. You're going to steal her power. I'm going to become her power. Kimberly's red eyes blazed. The lunar priestess reborn, but without the weakness, without the mortality, without the conscience. I'll have the strength to command the moon itself, to bend every wolf in this kingdom to my will. And you, dear cousin, will be the first to kneel over my dead body. That can be arranged. Kimberly moved like lightning, her hand punching through Jareth's chest before he could even shift. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to make him drop, gasping, blood pouring from the wound. Jareth! Maddie's scream cut through the cosmic power consuming her, and for a moment, just a moment, her eyes focused. Saw him bleeding. Saw Kimberly standing over him with murder in her smile. And something inside Maddie broke. The silver light exploded outward in a shockwave that threw everyone to the ground. When the brightness faded, Maddie stood no longer floating, no longer screaming, in the center of a crater that hadn't existed moments before. But she wasn't Maddie anymore. Her skin was translucent, glowing from within. Her hair moved like it was underwater, silver strands floating around her face. And her eyes, gods, her eyes were galaxies, swirling with stars and void, and the terrible, beautiful emptiness of space itself. You heard him. Her voice was layered, echoing, the sound of 1,000 Maddies speaking at once. You dare. Oh good, Kimberly interrupted, climbing to her feet with a grin. You're awake. This will make it so much more satisfying when I rip your power from your chest and wear it like a crown. She began chanting in a language older than wolves, older than kingdoms. Blood magic and shadow magic and something darker still, pulling at the threads of reality itself. And Maddie, the thing that had been Maddie, felt it. Felt her power being tugged, pulled toward Kimberly's outstretched hands like iron to a lodestone. No, she tried to resist, but the transformation wasn't complete. She was caught between mortal and immortal, between human and goddess, and in that liminal space, she was vulnerable. Yes! Kimberly's voice was triumphant as silver light began to flow from Maddie's chest toward her own. Come to me, ancient power. Come dear new. A massive black wolf slammed into Kimberly from the side. Jareth shifted despite his injury, his jaws clamped around her throat. But she was stronger than she should be, infused with stolen magic and revenant strength. She threw him off, snarling, blood dripping from her neck. Pathetic, she spat. You can't even protect your own mate. No, Jareth growled, shifting back to human form despite the agony. But I can give her time. He looked at Maddie, at the galaxy-eyed being she was becoming, and his expression cracked with love and grief. Finish it, he said hoarsely. Complete the transformation. Forge the covenant. Don't stop, no matter what happens to me. Jareth, no, Maddie's voice fractured, caught between divine and desperate. I love you. He smiled, blood on his teeth. I'll find you. I swear. Even if it takes eternity. Then he turned and threw himself at Kimberly again, buying seconds, buying moments, with his body and blood and the last shreds of his alpha strength. The Crimson Moon Alpha, finally freed from Kimberly's spell, joined him. Marcus's revenant form lunged for them both, and suddenly the sanctum was chaos, wolves and shadows and blood magic colliding in a maelstrom of violence. And Maddie stood at the center of it all, dying and being born simultaneously, her power hemorrhaging toward Kimberly while Jareth bled to buy her time. She had to choose. Complete the transformation and risk Kimberly stealing everything. Or stop now, stay mortal, and watch everyone she loved die. The blood moon pulsed overhead, impatient, hungry. Through the shattered dome, Maddie could see them, hundreds of crimson moon wolves, emerging from the Shadowlands, wild-eyed and starving for freedom. If she failed now, they would rage across the kingdom with 3 centuries of vengeance. If Kimberly succeeded, she would enslave them all. There was no good choice. There was only the choice she could live with. Maddie closed her galaxy eyes, felt Jareth's blood soaking into the stone, felt Kimberly's magic clawing at her soul. And she let go. Not of her power, of her fear. I am Maddie, she whispered to the universe, to the moon, to the magic burning through her. I am an archivist. An Omega who was never really an Omega. A woman who fell in love with a king who fell in love with me. And I am the daughter of the moon, the last lunar priestess, the bridge between what was and what will be. The silver light stabilized, stopped flowing toward Kimberly. And you, Maddie's voice resonated with cosmic finality as she turned her gaze on Kimberly, are nothing. She raised her hand. The blood moon answered. And the sanctum exploded with light so bright it burned away shadows, revenants, blood magic, everything false, everything stolen, everything corrupt. When the light faded, Kimberly was on her knees, screaming, her stolen magic ripped away. Marcus's revenant form dissipated like smoke. The corrupted wolves fled, howling. But Jareth lay in a pool of blood, his chest barely rising, his eyes fluttering closed. No, Maddie's cosmic voice broke on the word. No, no, no. She dropped beside him, her transformation incomplete, her power unstable. She pressed her glowing hands to his chest, trying to heal him, but mortal wounds didn't respond to divine magic the way they should. Jareth, please. Stay with me. Please. His eyes opened, just a sliver, and he smiled. Told you. I'd find you. Don't you dare. Maddie's tears fell like liquid starlight. Don't you dare die on me, you stubborn, infuriating, wonderful. Love you, he breathed. And his heart stopped. Time stopped. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Actually stopped. The blood moon froze in the sky. The dust hanging in the air suspended mid-fall. Kimberly's scream of fury locked in her throat, her face twisted in rage that would never finish expressing itself. Even the crimson moon Alpha, rushing toward them, hung motionless like a statue carved from starlight. Everything stopped. Except Maddie. She knelt in the frozen moment, her hands pressed against Jareth's silent chest, and felt the universe itself holding its breath. Waiting. Watching. Choosing. No, the word fell from her lips into the crystallized silence. This isn't how it ends. This isn't. Child of the moon. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Not in her ears, but in her soul, vast and ancient and infinite as the cosmos itself. You stand at the threshold. Between mortal and divine. Between what is and what could be. The covenant is incomplete. Your transformation unfinished. And the one you love lies dead at your feet. Then help me. Maddie screamed at the frozen sky, at the blood moon, at whatever cosmic force was speaking to her. You gave me this power, you made me your priestess, your bridge, so let me save him. Let me. I did not give you power, child. I gave you choice. The blood moon pulsed once, and suddenly Maddie could see, not with her eyes, but with something deeper. She saw the threads of fate spreading out before her like a web, each one a different path, a different future. One thread, she completed the transformation, became fully divine, forged the covenant. The Crimson Moon Pack was freed with balance restored. But Jareth stayed dead, and she became something so other that she could never touch him again, never mourn him, never feel anything but the cold distance of immortality. Another thread, she stopped the transformation, stayed mortal, and used the last of her power to revive Jareth. They lived, they loved, they had their happily ever after. But the Crimson Moon Pack remained sealed, suffering forever. And Kimberly would recover, would try again, would never stop until she'd bathed the kingdom in blood. A third thread, she gave up her power entirely. Poured every drop of divine magic into Jareth's chest and brought him back. But without the lunar priestess, the covenant couldn't be forged. The Crimson Moon Pack would break free with rage, and they would all die anyway. Her, Jareth, everyone. 3 paths. All of them agony. All of them sacrifice. This is what it means to be the bridge, child. To hold the weight of worlds on your shoulders and choose which one falls. Then they're all wrong. Maddie's voice shook, but her hands didn't. Every single path is wrong because they all demand I choose between love and duty, between my heart and everyone else's lives, between saving him and saving everyone. She looked down at Jareth's frozen face, peaceful in death, and something inside her crystallized into certainty. "What if I refuse?" she whispered. "What if I make a fourth path?" The blood moon pulsed again, curious now. "There is no fourth path. Then I'll create one." Maddie's galaxy eyes blazed with determination. "Because here's what I've learned, being an archivist, spending years in dusty libraries reading ancient texts. Rules are just stories we tell ourselves. Magic is just made manifest. And prophecies," she laughed, wild and fierce. "Prophecies are just suggestions." She pressed both palms flat against Jareth's chest and reached deep, not into her divine power, but into her human heart. Into the messy, imperfect love she felt for this impossible man. Into the bond between them, spelled or not, fate or not, real or not. "I choose him," she said clearly. "But I don't give up the covenant. I don't abandon the Crimson Moon Pack. I don't let Kimberly win. I choose all of it. That is not possible. Watch me." Maddie split herself open. Not physically, not even magically, but spiritually, tearing her own soul in two like ripping a page from a book. Half of her divine power, half of her lunar priestess magic, half of herself, she shoved into Jareth's chest, into his heart, into the mate bond that connected them. "You'll die," the cosmic voice warned. "Mortal bodies cannot survive division like this. I'll become mortal again," Maddie gasped, feeling her transformation reversing, her galaxy eyes fading back to brown, her translucent skin solidifying. "I'll lose the divinity, but Jareth will gain it. He'll become the bridge, the guardian." And together, she poured more power into him, feeling herself weakening, dying. "Together we can forge the covenant. Two halves of one whole, mortal and divine. Alpha King and Lunar Priestess. That has never been done." "Good." Maddie smiled, even as blood trickled from her nose, her ears, her eyes, the price of forcing magic to bend in ways it was never meant to. "I'm tired of doing things the way they've always been done. Time for something new." She pushed the last thread of divine power into Jareth's chest, and her vision went white. Then black. Then she woke to the sound of a heartbeat. Not hers. His. Maddie's eyes fluttered open, and she was still in the sanctum, still kneeling in blood and dust, but time had started again. The moon moved. The dust fell. And Jareth's chest rose and fell. His eyes opened, and they were silver. Glowing, galaxy deep, exactly like hers had been. "Maddie?" His voice echoed with cosmic harmonics, confused and awed. "What did you?" "I shared it," she whispered, swaying. "The power. The burden. The choice. You don't get to die and leave me alone to fix this mess. We do it together or not at all." Jareth sat up, staring at his hands, which were glowing faintly silver, crackling with divine energy. "I can feel everything. The Crimson Moon Pack. The seal. The covenant waiting to be forged." He looked at her in wonder. "How is this possible?" "Because I'm a stubborn archivist who doesn't follow the rules." Maddie tried to smile, but darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. "And because I love you too much to let you go." She collapsed. Jareth caught her before she hit the ground, and the moment he touched her, he understood. Felt what she'd done, what she'd sacrificed. She'd split her soul to save him, torn herself in half to give him the power to complete what she couldn't finish alone. And it was killing her. "No," his voice broke. "Maddie, no, you can't." "Covenant," she breathed, her lips barely moving. "Forge it. Now. While I'm still. I'm not doing it without you." Jareth gathered her against his chest, his new divine power flaring wildly around them. "I'm not. You have to." Maddie's hand, shaking and bloodstained, touched his cheek. "Half the power isn't enough for either of us alone." But together, her smile was faint. Together we're exactly what the prophecy needed. Two halves. Two worlds. Two souls made one. The Crimson Moon Alpha stumbled forward, freed from time's prison. She's right, he said hoarsely. I can feel it. The Covenant wants both of you. The Alpha King and the Lunar Priestess merged. That's the balance. That's what will set us free without vengeance, bind us without chains. Jareth looked down at Maddie, dying in his arms, and felt the divine power singing in his veins, her power, given freely, desperately, lovingly. How? He demanded. How do we forge it if she's the mate bond? The Crimson Moon Alpha said. It's already connecting you. Already making you one. You just have to let go. Trust it. Trust her. Kimberly, no longer frozen, lunged at them with a scream of rage. But the Crimson Moon Alpha intercepted her, his massive silver wolf form slamming her into the ground. Do it now, he roared. Before she recovers, before the moment passes. Jareth looked at Maddie, barely breathing, barely there. And he did the hardest thing he'd ever done. He trusted. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead against hers, and let the mate bond, spelled or fated or something in between, open. Let her half of the divine power and his half merge and swirl and become something greater than either alone. Silver light erupted from both of them, shooting up through the shattered dome, piercing the blood moon itself. And across the kingdom, in the Shadowlands, in every corner of every territory, wolves felt it. The Covenant being forged. Not a prison. Not a weapon. But a promise. Balance. Equality. Partnership. The Crimson Moon Pack, freed but bound by honor to protect, not destroy. The Alpha Council, humbled but invited to share power, not hoard it. And at the center of it all, two souls burning as one, mortal and divine, Alpha and Priestess, love and sacrifice made manifest. When the light faded, Jareth still held Maddie. But she wasn't dying anymore. She was glowing faintly, softly, like moonlight on water. And when her eyes opened, they were brown again, human again, but flecked with silver. Did it work? She whispered. Jareth laughed, or sobbed, or both, and kissed her forehead. You impossible, brilliant, insane woman. You broke prophecy itself. I prefer, creatively interpreted. Maddie smiled weakly. Did we? Yes. The Crimson Moon Alpha approached, and he was weeping. Weeping. I can feel it. We all can. The chains are gone. We're free. But the Covenant holds. We're bound not by force, but by choice. By honor. By the balance you created. Through the shattered dome, silver wolves began to descend, hundreds of them, the Crimson Moon Pack, landing with impossible grace. And they weren't snarling. They were bowing. To Jareth. To Maddie. To the bridge they'd become together. The moment of peace lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then Kimberly screamed. It wasn't a sound that should have come from a living throat. It was rage and madness and 3 centuries of bitterness given voice. She tore free from the Crimson Moon Alpha's grip, her body contorting in ways that defied physics, bones breaking and reforming as forbidden magic consumed her from the inside out. You think this is over? Her voice distorted, layered with something ancient and hateful. You think you can just rewrite everything? Make your pretty little covenant and live happily ever after while I get nothing. Blood poured from her eyes, her nose, her ears, the price of channeling power her body was never meant to hold. But she didn't care. She was beyond caring, beyond reason, beyond anything except the need to destroy what she couldn't possess. I was supposed to be queen, she shrieked, her form flickering between woman and something else, something with too many teeth and shadows for skin. The Crimson Moon Pack was supposed to bow to me. The kingdom was supposed to be mine. And you, her red eyes locked on Maddie with pure hatred. You stole it. You stole everything. Jareth moved to intercept, but Maddie caught his arm. Wait, she breathed, still weak but steady. This isn't over yet. The covenant is forged, but it's not. It's not sealed. What do you mean? Jareth demanded, the divine power in his veins humming with warning. A covenant requires willing agreement from all parties, the Crimson Moon Alpha said grimly, understanding dawning in his red eyes. We agreed. You agreed. The Crimson Moon Pack agreed. But he looked at Kimberly, who was laughing now, manic and broken. She carries Crimson Moon blood. Diluted, distant, but it's there. And she hasn't agreed to anything. Which means she can still break it, Maddie realized with horror. The covenant is fragile right now, New. If she rejects it, if she pours enough hate and blood magic into refusing it, it shatters. Jareth's jaw clenched. And we're back to square one. Seal or freedom. Prison or vengeance. No middle ground. Kimberly's laughter intensified. Finally, someone gets it. She spread her arms wide, and the shadows in the sanctum deepened, writhed, reached for the silver light of the covenant like poison seeking to corrupt. I am the poison pill, cousin. The one thing your perfect little prophecy didn't account for. And I'm going to choke on this covenant until it dies. She began to chant, the same dark magic as before, but worse now, fueled by desperation and madness. The silver wolves surrounding them whined, pawing at the ground as they felt the covenant straining, beginning to fracture under the weight of one person's absolute refusal. We have to stop her, Jareth snarled, moving to strike. No, Maddie's hand tightened on his arm. Violence won't work. She wants us to attack her. Wants us to prove that the covenant is just another form of tyranny, just another way of forcing wolves to submit. Then what do? Jareth's voice was raw with frustration. She's tearing apart everything we just built. Maddie looked at Kimberly, really looked at her. Past the madness, past the hatred, past the blood magic eating her alive from the inside. And she saw something else. Pain. Grief. The hollow, aching loneliness of someone who'd lost everything and everyone, who'd spent 20 years in hiding, plotting revenge because it was the only thing that gave her purpose. We offer her a choice, Maddie said quietly. She's had choices, Jareth protested. She chose revenge. She chose darkness. She chose survival, Maddie interrupted gently. The only way she knew how. She pulled away from Jareth and stepped forward, toward Kimberly, ignoring his growl of warning. Maddie, don't. But she was already moving, walking into the heart of Kimberly's dark magic, into the shadows that reached for her with hungry fingers. You're right, Maddie said, her voice clear and steady. The covenant didn't account for you. Kimberly's chanting faltered. What? It didn't account for the wolves who fell through the cracks. Who were neither fully Crimson Moon nor fully Kingdom Pack. Who belonged nowhere, fit nowhere, were wanted nowhere. Maddie stopped just outside the circle of shadows. I know what that feels like, Kimberly. Being invisible. Being forgotten. Being so desperate to matter that you'd do anything, even terrible things, just to be seen. You don't know anything about me, Kimberly spat, but her voice cracked. I know your father died screaming Jareth's name, begging him to spare you, Maddie said softly. I know you watched from the shadows while the only person who ever loved you was executed for crimes you committed. I know you spent 20 years alone, powerless, burning with rage, because the world took everything from you and gave you nothing in return. Tears mixed with the blood on Kimberly's face. He took my father. My home. I know. Maddie's own eyes were wet. And nothing I say will make that right. Nothing will bring your father back or give you those 20 years. But Kimberly, she extended her hand, palm up, across the barrier of shadows. You can still choose what comes next. You can still decide who you want to be. I want to be queen, Kimberly shrieked. No, you don't. Maddie's voice was gentle but firm. You want to be valued. You want to matter. You want someone to look at you and say you belong here. You are enough. She smiled sadly. Queens are lonely, Kimberly. Trust me, I'm about to become one. But family? Pack? People who see you and choose you anyway? That's real power. I have no family, Kimberly whispered. No pack. No. You have crimson moon blood, the Alpha said, stepping forward. His voice was rough with emotion. Distant, yes. Diluted by generations. But it's there. Which means you're kin. Your pack. If you want to be. Kimberly stared at him, disbelieving. You'd accept me? After everything The covenant is about second chances, Maddie said. About acknowledging that the old ways were broken and building something new. Something that has room for wolves who don't fit the mold. Wolves who've made mistakes. Wolves who've been hurt. She took a step closer, her hand still extended. You can reject the covenant and die trying to destroy it. Or you can accept it, join us, and help build something better than anything that came before. Why? Kimberly's voice broke completely. Why would you offer me mercy after I tried to kill you? Because someone offered me mercy once, Maddie said, glancing back at Jareth. Someone saw an invisible Omega archivist and decided she was worth protecting. Worth seeing. And that changed everything. She looked back at Kimberly. So I'm offering you the same thing. See me. See this covenant. See the chance to be part of something instead of destroying everything. The shadows around Kimberly wavered, flickered. I don't know how to be anything except angry, Kimberly whispered. Then learn. Maddie's smile was warm despite everything. We'll teach you. The Crimson Moon Pack spent 300 years learning to survive in darkness. Surely they can teach one lost wolf how to live in the light. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. The covenant hung in the balance, fragile as spider silk. Then, slowly, Kimberly's hand rose. Shaking, blood-stained, reaching across the barrier of shadows toward Maddie's outstretched palm. I'm so tired, she breathed. I'm so tired of being angry. I know, Maddie said. Me too. Their hands met, and the shadows shattered. Not violently, they just dissolved, like darkness at dawn. The blood magic eating Kimberly alive faded, leaving her exhausted and broken but alive. And through the mate bond, through the covenant, Maddie felt it. The final piece clicking into place. The last thread of acceptance woven into the tapestry. The covenant, complete and unbreakable, settling over the kingdom like a benediction. Kimberly collapsed, and the Crimson Moon Alpha caught her. Welcome home, little cousin, he murmured. She sobbed into his shoulder, great, heaving cries of relief and grief, and the beginning of healing. Jareth appeared at Maddie's side, pulling her against him as silver light erupted from the covenant one final time, spreading across the kingdom like dawn breaking. Through the bond, Maddie felt it reaching every wolf, every pack, settling into their bones with a truth they couldn't deny. You are free. You are equal. You are bound not by chains, but by choice. This is the new way. This is balance. The Crimson Moon wolves threw back their heads and howled, not in rage, but in joy. In triumph. In the savage, beautiful relief of 3 centuries of suffering finally ending. And across the kingdom, other wolves joined them. Kingdom Pack and Crimson Moon, Alpha and Omega, all howling together under the blood moon that had brought them to this impossible moment. Jareth pressed his forehead against Maddie's, and his eyes, still flecked with silver, still carrying half her divine power, were wet. You did it, he whispered. You saved everyone. We did it, Maddie corrected. Together. Like it was always supposed to be. The prophecy was right. Maddie smiled. Just not the way anyone expected. The daughter of 2 worlds. The Alpha King. The Lost Pack. The poisoned bloodline. We all played our parts. We all made our choices. She cupped his face in her hands. And we all get to live with the consequences. A kingdom rebuilt from the ground up, Jareth said, glancing at the Crimson Moon Alpha, at Kimberly still crying in his arms, at the hundreds of wolves now landing in the courtyard beyond. This is going to be chaos. Good, Maddie laughed. I'm tired of order that only works for some people. Let's try chaos that works for everyone. Jareth kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. The mate bond between them sang, no longer just a spell but something earned, something chosen. When they broke apart, the blood moon was setting. Dawn was coming, and with it a new world. 3 months later, the royal council chamber looked nothing like it had before the blood moon. Gone were the cold stone walls and the singular throne that had dominated the room for 3 centuries. In their place stood a circular chamber, redesigned, rebuilt, and reopened, with 12 seats arranged in a perfect circle. No throne, no hierarchy, just equals, sitting together to guide a kingdom that was learning, slowly and painfully, how to heal. Maddie stood at the window overlooking the courtyard, watching the sunset over a scene that still took her breath away. Kingdom wolves and crimson moon wolves training together, their forms, silver and brown and black and gold, moving in synchronized patterns that would have been impossible 4 months ago. "You're nervous," Jareth said from behind her, his arms sliding around her waist. Terrified, Maddie admitted, leaning back into his warmth. The first joint council meeting since the Covenant. 12 alphas in one room, half of them from a pack that was imprisoned for 3 centuries, trying to agree on laws and territories, and she laughed, shaky. "What if it all falls apart? Then we build it again." Jareth pressed a kiss to her temple. "That's what the Covenant means, remember? Not perfection. Not a permanent solution. Just a commitment to keep trying." Maddie turned in his arms, studying his face. The silver had faded from his eyes over the past months, settling into faint threads around his pupils, a reminder of the divine power they'd shared, the impossible thing they'd accomplished together. Her own eyes held matching silver flecks, glinting when the light hit them just right. 2 halves of one whole. Mortal and divine. Alpha King and Lunar Priestess. Though Maddie refused to use that title. "I'm still just an archivist," she'd insisted when they'd tried to give her a crown. "The kingdom doesn't need another ruler. It needs someone who remembers where we came from so we don't repeat the same mistakes." So she'd remained in the archives, cataloging the histories being written in real time, preserving the stories of the Crimson Moon Pack's imprisonment so future generations would never forget what tyranny looked like. But she'd also taken a seat on the council. Not as a ruler. As a witness. A keeper of truth. "They're arriving," Jareth murmured, nodding toward the courtyard where wolves in both human and shifted form were streaming toward the council building. Maddie took a breath. "Then I suppose we should." A knock at the door interrupted her. "Come in," Jareth called. The door opened and Kimberly stepped through. She looked different now, cleaner, healthier, her red eyes no longer blazing with madness, but calm, almost peaceful. She'd spent the past 3 months with the Crimson Moon Pack, learning their ways, undergoing the rituals that would formally accept her as kin despite her diluted bloodline. It hadn't been easy. Some of the Crimson Moon wolves still looked at her with suspicion, still remembered that she'd tried to use them as weapons. But the Alpha, whose name, Maddie had learned, was Zane, had taken her under his wing with a patience that spoke of centuries of wisdom. "The council is gathering," Kimberly said quietly. "Alpha Zane sent me to escort you both." There was no bitterness in her voice. No rage. Just exhaustion, and beneath it, the fragile green shoots of something that might, someday, become peace. "Thank you," Maddie said warmly. "Walk with us." Kimberly hesitated, then nodded. They made their way through the palace halls, so different now, with silver wolves moving freely alongside kingdom wolves, with laughter and conversation replacing the cold silence that had once defined these corridors. "How are you settling in?" Maddie asked as they walked. Kimberly's lips twitched in something almost like a smile. "The Crimson Moon Pack doesn't believe in coddling. I've been thrown into training exercises that would kill most wolves, forced to participate in bonding rituals that involve trust falls from 100-foot cliffs, and last week, Alpha Zane made me hunt with the pups to reconnect with my basic instincts." She paused. "It's the most alive I've felt in 20 years. Good, Jareth said, and there was genuine warmth in his voice. You deserve that, Kimberly. After everything. Her red eyes flickered with emotion. I don't deserve anything. But I'm grateful for the chance to be something other than what I was. That's all any of us can ask for, Maddie said softly. They reached the council chamber, and Maddie's breath caught. It was full. Not just the 12 council members, but dozens of wolves, representatives from every pack, every territory, come to witness this historic moment. Kingdom wolves in formal attire mixed with Crimson Moon wolves in leather and silver, and the tension in the room was thick enough to taste. But they were here. Together. Trying. Alpha Zane stood as they entered, his silver hair catching the lamplight. Alpha King Jareth. Keeper Maddie. He nodded respectfully. The council awaits. Jareth squeezed Maddie's hand once, then moved to his seat, not at the head of the circle, because there was no head, but at the eastern point. Maddie took her place at the western point, directly across from him, with Zane to her right. The other alphas settled into their seats, 6 from the kingdom packs, 6 from the Crimson Moon clans. Equals. Balanced. We call this council to order, Jareth said, his voice carrying through the chamber. 3 months ago, the covenant was forged. 3 months ago, we promised to build something new. Something better. Today, we prove whether that promise was empty words or genuine intention. The Crimson Moon Pack has grievances, Alpha Zane said, his tone measured but firm. 3 centuries of imprisonment. Families torn apart. Entire generations lost to darkness. There must be acknowledgement. There must be reparations, finished Alpha Cole from the Northern Territories, a kingdom wolf with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. Which means land. Resources. Power. Things that will have to come from us, from wolves who had nothing to do with the original sealing. The room tensed. You had everything to do with it, growled Alpha Luca, a Crimson Moon wolf with scars crisscrossing his face. Your ancestors lived in comfort while ours suffered. You benefited from our imprisonment every single day. And now you want to pretend it wasn't your responsibility. We can't change the past, Cole began. But we can acknowledge it, Maddie interrupted, her voice cutting through the rising anger. And acknowledging means more than words. It means action. She stood, pulling out a scroll she'd spent the past month preparing. I've compiled the records of every Crimson Moon Pack family lost to the sealing. Every name, every lineage, every territory they once held. She unrolled it, and the parchment unfurled impossibly long, trailing across the floor. This is what was taken. This is what must be returned, not as charity, but as justice. Silence fell. Cole stared at the list, his expression unreadable. That's a third of the kingdom. Yes, Maddie said simply. It is. You're asking us to give up a third of our territories? Alpha Nate, a southern kingdom wolf, demanded. That's fair, Zane said quietly. If we divide it proportionally among all packs, Kingdom and Crimson Moon both, no one loses everything. But everyone contributes to making this right. And if we refuse? Cole asked, though his tone suggested he was testing, not threatening. Jareth's eyes glinted silver. Then the covenant breaks. And we go back to the old way, seals and prisons and wolves living in fear of each other. Is that what you want, Cole? Another 3 centuries of suspicion and hatred. Cole was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the center of the circle, and picked up the scroll. Studied the names. The families. The weight of history written in ink and sorrow. My great-grandfather, he said slowly, was one of the wolves who helped create the seal. He was rewarded with Crimson Moon territory, land that had belonged to. He traced a finger down the list. The Silverfang clan. Land my family has held for 300 years. He looked up, meeting Zane's eyes. I'll return it, Cole said. All of it. With apologies that can never be enough, but are all I have to give. The room erupted. Some wolves shouted in agreement. Others protested, argued, demanded more time to think. But Cole stood firm, and slowly, Other kingdom alphas joined him. Not all of them. Not easily. But enough. By the time the moon rose outside the windows, a plan had been sketched, territories returned, resources shared, a reparations fund established from the royal treasury. It wasn't perfect. It would take years, decades, to fully implement. But it was a start. As the meeting ended and wolves began to disperse, Zane approached Maddie and Jareth. "Thank you," he said simply, "for seeing us. For choosing us." "Thank you for trusting us," Maddie replied. "For believing the covenant could be real." Zane smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "My granddaughter was born last week. In sunlight, not shadow. In freedom, not chains." His eyes gleamed with tears. "That's what you gave us. Not just land or resources, but a future." He clasped Jareth's arm, then Maddie's hand, and walked away to join his pack. Jareth pulled Maddie close, and they stood in the empty council chamber, watching through the windows as wolves silver and brown, kingdom and crimson moon, gathered in the courtyard below. Someone had started a fire. Someone else had brought drums. And slowly, tentatively, they began to dance. "We did it," Maddie whispered. "We actually did it." "You did it," Jareth corrected. "I was just along for the ride." "Liar." She elbowed him gently. "You gave up absolute power. Shared your throne. Admitted your family's crimes. That took more courage than anything I did." "Then we'll call it a tie." Jareth turned her to face him, his silver-flecked eyes warm. "You know what happens now, don't you?" "The hard part," Maddie guessed. "The living part." He smiled. "Building this new world day by day. Making mistakes. Fixing them. Growing old together while we figure out what balance actually looks like." "Sounds exhausting." "Sounds perfect." Jareth dropped to one knee, and Maddie's breath caught. "I know we're already bonded," he said, pulling a ring from his pocket, simple silver etched with moon phases. "I know the mate bond ties us together whether we wear symbols or not. But I want to choose you, Maddie. Every day. Every moment. Not because prophecy says so, not because magic demands it, but because I love you." "So," he held up the ring, "will you marry me? Will you keep choosing me back?" Maddie's tears fell like starlight. "You ridiculous, wonderful man. Did you really think I'd say no? Is that a yes?" "That's a yes, you absolute fool. Now get up here and kiss me." He did. And in the courtyard below, the drums beat faster. The wolves danced harder. And someone, maybe Kimberly, maybe Zane, maybe just the universe itself, howled in celebration. The sound echoed across the kingdom, carrying a message that had been 3 centuries in the making. We are free. We are equal. We are pack. And we choose each other. 5 years later. Maddie stood in the palace library, her library now, expanded and open to wolves of all ranks, and smiled at the group of pups gathered at her feet. "Tell us the story again," a young crimson moon pup demanded, her silver fur gleaming in the lamplight. "Which story?" Maddie asked, though she already knew. "The blood moon," the pups chorused. So Maddie told them. Told them about the lost pack and the prophecy and the girl who thought she was nobody special. She told them about choices and sacrifices and the third path that saved everyone. And when she finished, one of the kingdom pups, a small brown wolf with serious eyes, raised his paw. "Yes, Nathan," Maddie said. "Were you scared?" he asked. "When you had to choose?" Maddie thought about it. Terrified, she admitted. "But I learned something important that night. Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. It means you're doing something that matters." The pups nodded solemnly, filing this wisdom away. As they scattered to their lessons, Jareth appeared in the doorway, silver threading his dark hair now, smile lines crinkling around his eyes. "Still telling stories?" he teased. "Always." Maddie moved into his arms, fitting there like she'd been designed for exactly this space. "Someone has to make sure they remember. So they never repeat our mistakes. And so they know," Jareth added softly, "that change is possible." That even broken things can be remade into something beautiful. Through the window, Maddie could see the kingdom spreading out before them, territories shared, packs mingled, wolves building a future together instead of tearing each other apart. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, still tensions, still wolves who struggled to let go of old hatreds. But they were trying. And that was enough. Do you ever regret it? Jareth asked quietly. Giving up your divinity? Becoming mortal again? Maddie looked up at him, at the silver still threading through his eyes, at the marks of time and love and living written across both their faces. Not for a second, she said. This messy, complicated, mortal life with you? This is everything I ever wanted. Even the council meetings that last 6 hours? Even those. Even Alpha Cole's terrible jokes? Especially those. Jareth laughed and kissed her, and somewhere in the distance a wolf howled, not in rage or sorrow, but in simple, uncomplicated joy. The blood moon had risen and set. The covenant held strong. And two souls who'd been broken and remade and chosen each other despite impossible odds stood together, watching the sun set on a kingdom that was finally learning what it meant to be whole. And that's it, beautiful souls. We made it. Through prophecy and pain and impossible choices, we made it to the other side. I'm sitting here with tears streaming down my face because this is what love looks like. This is what sacrifice means. This is what happens when we choose each other, choose hope, choose to build something better than what came before. Drop a comment and tell me, what was your favorite moment? Which character touched your heart the most? Are you Team Maddie, Team Jareth, or Team I'm crying too hard to pick sides? And if you loved this story, if it moved you, wrecked you, made you believe in the power of choice and love and second chances, please hit that subscribe button. Because I've got so many more stories to tell, and I want you here with me for every single one. Until the next blood moon rises, stay wild, stay brave, and never stop choosing love.